You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
If I could have gotten 51 votes in the Senate of the United States for an outright ban, picking up every one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them all in, I would have done it.
I have 2 words for you. Predator drones. You will never see it coming.
It's time for On Target Radio, Chicagoland's only radio show dedicated to the red meat issues that affect your life, from gun control to freedom of speech. Now, debating, debunking, and discussing today's hot issues. Here are your hosts, David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz.
Welcome to On Target Radio. Tonight, David and Gretchen's guest is Rob Pincus, president of I.C.E. Training. They'll be discussing Rob's concern about the average concealed carry holder's readiness for a lethal confrontation, and David's recent experience taking Rob's combat focus shooting program. And you won't want to miss tonight's segment 6, when Gretchen and David will be talking about the reality of concealed carry. All that and more on tonight's On Target Radio. So be sure to give us a call at 312-642-5600 or go to Facebook and like our page, On Target Radio, and ask a question there.
And now, from the seething cauldron of personal opinion, it's time for David's Rant of the Week.
You don't know what you don't know. I've said that countless times to people who call asking about one or other of our Safer USA courses, most notably concealed carry. For some reason, people seem to think safe and effective firearm operation is a birthright. Earlier this week, I was given a reality check on this very subject. Every couple of years, I have to renew my NRA law enforcement instructor credential, and it requires continuing education. As my renewal date drew nearer, I cast about looking for something suitable and discovered Rob Pincus, president of I.C.E. Training Services, was going to be teaching his 2-day combat-focused shooting course at the Illinois State Rifle Association range. The course description said it is an intuitive shooting program designed to help the student be more efficient with a defensive firearm in the context of a dynamic critical incident. Bingo, pay dirt. Pincus is an internationally known trainer and has a significant reputation, so I signed up for the course. A short time later, I came across a review of his training, and the comment said Pincus yells at everyone and is a bully. Oh, lovely. But I needed the training hours, and I'd already spent the money, so I figured, how bad could it be? I've been shooting for for exactly 50 years, and I've taken a lot of firearm training classes from the Army, Navy, various sheriff's departments, the NRA, and independent instructors. I can say without reservation, Rob Pincus is one of the best instructors I have ever known. Does he shout at people? You bet. But in my critique at the end of the class, I said, this was like basic training, except with a sense of humor. Pincus encourages, corrects, cajoles, and excoriates every student in the class, but his excoriation is as much tongue-in-cheek as it is correcting someone who has screwed up something for the 5th time. There's nothing mean-spirited about it. And pretty much everyone was laughing at everyone else when they did something wrong and fell under his gaze. His sense of humor reminded me of a time when one of my students tripped for the 3rd or 4th time because he couldn't follow directions on how to move laterally. I looked at him and said, you ought to get a 3rd leg. You'd have more options on what to trip over. All that notwithstanding, the 2 long days of training blended classroom theory with practical application. Pincus warns the prospective student in advance that he may not come out of that class a better shooter. Instead, the emphasis of the class is to show the student the most effective and efficient way of self-defense with a firearm from a strong base of understanding the significant effect of kinesthesia. Pincus takes students to the range and then has them work on drills that expose weaknesses in technique. The point of the course is to show the student what his weaknesses are and to give him drills and exercises to strengthen those skills going forward. It's very clear that Pincus has spent many years developing his 2-day combat-focused shooting course. During those 2 days, he laid to rest a number of myths and inefficient yet common practices. His diagram and explanation of the relationship between speed and accuracy was worth the price of the course. In the first go-around, students' targets had neat clusters of holes near the X-ring. Pincus went down the line, looked at each one, made one of the most significant comments of the course. Someone's trying to kill you, and you're wasting time with marksmanship, he said. If you're shooting tight groups, you're taking too long. Speed it up. What the 2-day combat-focused shooting course isn't is a series of fun exercises designed to make students feel good about themselves. Instead, students did numerous repetitions of specific drills to find weaknesses, then work them out. Was it intense? You bet. We worked our butts off with ever-increasingly challenging drills. It was a program full of evaluation, correction, new concepts, and exhaustingly long days. It was the best training I have ever had, and equally important, it reinforced what I've been telling students for years. You don't know what you don't know. And that, Gretchen, is kind of my rant for the week.
I was just glad you didn't go to the emergency room for any reason.
No, not at all. It was, except maybe for laughing, because
I was concerned.
the man, he has a great sense of humor, but he holds your toes to the line. And he has agreed to be our guest this evening for the show, and I would like to welcome Rob Pincus, who is owner of I.C.E. Training, and just it's a great program you got, Rob, and I thank you for being with us this evening.
I thank you very much, sir. It's a great description of someone who went through the class just very recently, and it was an interesting class. We had a big class. It was a great range. We had a great classroom facility. We had interesting weather and a lot of different personalities, a lot of different experiences, and I wish I was hitting record. I hope I get a copy of this to just let people to play for all prospective students. They know what they're getting into.
Actually, you will get a copy. We'll give you a copy of it, so it's not a problem. You can either have a video or an audio or both. How's that?
That's great. That's perfect. I like it. Yeah, that is your perspective. Given half a century of shooting experience, and as an instructor and as a student, it's incredibly important to me. And I think we discussed this at the end of the class that I hear that kind of feedback. That I hear what was good, what was bad, what was the takeaway, what was the impression, and not just from your perspective and from the person who's never been through a class before. That's what helps make the program what it is in 2016. It's not the program it was in 2012. It's not the program it was in 2006. It's not the program it was when we named it and made it an official codified program in 2003. It's an amalgamation of everything I did as a student, starting in the 80s through starting teaching in the mid to late 90s, all the way through that experience. And I've taught classes since we were together. I've taught 2 classes and referenced some things that happened in your class in both of those classes, just as I'm sure when we were together I made references to other recent classes.
Sure.
There's always an evolution, and it's always driven by the students. So I appreciate your attention to it enough to share those ideas.
You're listening to AM560 The Answers on Target Radio. Our guest this evening is Rob Pincus, and we're talking about his combat-focused shooting program. Just to start things rolling, what concerns, if any, do you have about people who are getting concealed carry today?
I think my biggest concern comes from the fundamental lack of clear relevance between the practical skills, not the education about the law, not the education about procedures, not the education about kind of where you can carry, when you can carry, how you can carry, all that stuff. Some of those programs from state to state and from instructor to instructor are incredibly thorough and incredibly valuable for someone who's new to firearms and who hasn't done the research themselves. Where I have concerns is in the practical skill set, all the way down to the courses that don't require any training, all the way through the courses that run law enforcement kind of basic, academy-style qualification courses, to the stuff in between where shooting into a pile of sand and unloading and loading a gun and firing one round constitutes demonstrating competency with a firearm. The physical skill set that is portrayed as being relevant or is portrayed as being important to the person who's truly new to firearms worries me, because they may believe it. They may buy into it, and they get this official card and they get this official, letter that says, yes, you are now certified, yes, you can carry a gun in public. And while I know a lot of responsible instructors who say this is the beginning of your training and you need to carry on, you need to do this, you and I both know that human behavior is if the government gives you a card and says, here you go, you can go out in public.
That's it.
They take that much more seriously, and ultimately that's what leads to the complacency, and that's what leads to the rationalization about why they don't go out and train for 50 years.
Sure.
Like you are.
We got about 30 seconds. Give us a call, 312-642-5600. It's a chance to talk with Rob Pincus and pick his brain. I got 30 seconds. Can you just tell me, literally in 30 seconds, what what literally is, when we talk about dynamic critical incident, what you coined that term, did you not?
Yeah, it's a very specific term. We have a lot of terminology in the program, and a dynamic critical incident is something that's surprising. You didn't know it was going to happen. It's chaotic, so you don't know what's going to happen next, and there's a threat. And in a combat-focused shooting course, that threat is one you need to respond to through the use of your firearm.
Exactly. And I found it very interesting. We're going to talk a little more about that and a couple other things. When we come back, one of the things I want to definitely hit on is defensive accuracy. That's something I really picked up from you I thought was interesting. And then training, in general. So we're going to come back with more on Target Radio after these messages and Rob Pincus. And you're listening to AM560, The Answer. How about... Well, why don't you ask him, what's combat defensive accuracy? I found that, did I tell you what that is? We talked about?
It's on the...
Oh, right. Yeah. Provided the answer, too, in case I forgot.
I learned how to read in first grade.
Yeah, and edit, too.
Well, that was a little bit later. That was like 6th grade, but yeah.
Ask him out. Now, are we coming back with... You're doing a rejoiner?
Yep.
Who's doing a rejoiner?
Me.
Okay. So he comes back with a rejoiner. You can pop the question. That's a bad choice of words. You can ask the question.
So you want me to ask number 6?
Well, yeah, or unless something else motivates you. But that's where we sort of left it with. What's combat defensive, and we didn't answer it. So.
Sure. Oh, so are you going to the movie tomorrow?
Okay. What time is it?
7:30.
Oh. Is it a place where we can sit up and no one can come behind us?
I think so, yeah.
Right down?
Yep.
You go upstairs?
We'll have to, if you want to sit on the top, we'll have to, go early so we can pick our seats.
I just don't want to sit with my back to the door.
Yeah, it's one of those stadium type of places where the doors are down here.
And they got to come at you.
Right. They all, I think there's some seats in the front, but most of the seats are up. So. Yeah. It's the same theater where I went with that guy that's got all the little girls, and we took his kids to the Avengers 2, and I held myself back from telling them all, okay, if anyone comes in and starts shooting, I want you all to lay flat on the floor.
On the floor.
And I'm gonna get on top of you and.
Right.
I've had that conversation with people before as well.
And I'm not going down that road.
I held myself back, I'm like, let's not freak out the children.
I have had that conversation though with people who just kind of were like, okay, if you say so.
Well, and the funny thing was that without any prompting from me, they picked the seats where your back is to the wall, all the way at the top of the seat. I was like,
survival.
Nice seat choice.
Survival
Very
of the
nice. I didn't have to coach him at all.
La da, dee da da, boom boom boom.
Oh, that's bad.
What's bad?
This guy posted a picture of somebody peed all over the toilet seat, and it said, coming soon to a women's restrooms everywhere.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm like, oh! It even bugs me when the guys at Safer USA leave the toilet seat down.
Have you looked on Target Radio, special guest Rob Pincus? You seen this?
No.
1,180 people reached.
No, I didn't see that.
And it just
Stand by.
As word, the fastest hour of radio on the dial.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM560 The Answer with David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz. Here's David and Gretchen with more interesting conversation on gun control, concealed carry, freedom of speech, and other red meat issues that affect your life.
This segment is brought to you by the Will County Grassroots Division of the Illinois State Rifle Association. Join like-minded friends supporting the right to keep and bear arms in Illinois at 7 p.m. on the third Wednesday of the month at the Silver Dollar Restaurant in Elwood, Illinois.
So, Rob, what is combat defensive accuracy?
So defensive accuracy, we talk about being a yes or no proposition. Your shot either significantly affects the target's ability to present a lethal threat or it doesn't. In the real world, we say that luck counts, but you can't count on luck. Sometimes you shoot somebody in the leg and they drop and they give up. Sometimes people pull a gun out and miss, and the bad guy changes his mind and runs away. Other times we have to hit a target several times in order to physically stop them. Sometimes the situation is so dire and extreme that it requires a shot that's going to instantly shut down the bad guy's ability to hurt anyone. Often when you're trying to protect someone else, you might have to take a shot into the base of the brain or the top of the spine, midbrain, and literally stop the functioning of the human body. So that's what we count on, right? We talk about counter ambush training, the worst case scenario. We look for the default training and the default response, the target areas that are very likely to, if a bullet goes through them, have a significant effect physiologically on that bad guy, and that if we fire multiple rounds into that area, specifically the high center chest, in a short period of time, we're very likely to make it impossible for the bad guy to hurt us. In training, that translates to identifying a target area that represents either the center of the head, the midbrain, the base of the brain, the top of the spine, or the high center chest area, the area under the clavicle, above the diaphragm, sort of between the nipples, if you're looking at someone straight on, under the width of the head, and represent that size target area on the piece of paper or on the steel target with just a simple geometric shape, a rectangle, a square, a circle, an oval, a triangle, that is about that size, and let people shoot to hit those target areas as quickly as they can. And that's why it's important to look at defensive accuracy as a yes or no. If we start gradiating success in terms of accuracy with things like bullseye targets with concentric circles or concentric ovals, you create this human behavior of, well, it's better to hit a smaller area. Well, of course, to hit a smaller area, you have to go slower. And in fact, obviously, in a defensive shooting situation, you want to hit the area that you've determined to be valid as quickly as possible, not slow yourself down in any way.
I found it interesting because shooters are locked into putting one on the X and 49 holes, 49 on top of that one. And there's a certain irony because in class I've always said, it's an 8-9-inch pie plate. You just want to fill it up with, with holes. And yet when we go out to the range, we still are scoring them. And your point about that, I thought, was really well taken. You don't want them on the X-ring. As in fact, you were saying to somebody, you're spending too much time aiming the gun.
Yeah, we want in marksmanship, in shooting, and it's funny you say as shooters. What I'm seeing more and more and more in our classes are people who aren't shooters. They didn't grow up with guns. They're not like you and me. They didn't shoot guns as a kid and continue with hunting and sport shooting and competition shooting, and then maybe serve some time as an armed professional, whether in the military, security, or law enforcement roles, and then continue to have the recreational shooting endeavors as well as the personal and home defense interests. Like that's a small group of people that are gun owners. It's of the 100 million gun owners we have in the U.S. It's a small group of people who are that enthusiastic or have been involved in all those areas. Well, guess who drives the industry? Of course, the people who are out there doing what you and I do, talking about guns in the media, talking about the firearms, writing about firearms online in magazines, appearing on television shows, teaching courses, attending courses even. We're the hobbyists. We're the enthusiasts. We're passionate about shooting. We're passionate about firearms. And far too often, that creates a 50,000-foot view on skill development. And as we talk a lot about in class, if we think about vehicles and cars instead of guns, because we all have to use our cars in different ways, I think it's a lot easier to see how practical we are about our firearms, how practical we are about our vehicles, how practical we are about the way we drive and our driving skill, as opposed to a race car driver who learns to drive on a track in a controlled environment with specialized gear and goes for the ultimate lap time. And you look at a shooter who goes for the ultimate precise group or the ultimate long shot. Well, obviously the range is the racetrack of firearms. So we spend a lot of time chasing this perfection as a hobbyist as a shooter, quote unquote, as opposed to the average person who's going out and getting their firearm at age 30-something or 40-something because they realize, wow, I have a responsibility to protect my family. I have a legal right to seek that opportunity out in any way I deem appropriate, and a firearm may be the most appropriate way. So let me go learn some skills. In the same way that someone doesn't have to be a car enthusiast, someone doesn't have to have that Corvette in the garage or lust after the Ferrari in order to know that they need a car and they need to have the driver's license and they need to have the skill to get their kids to school and pick up the groceries and buy supplies for the house.
I find it somewhat ironic that I think the state police, without knowing it, has actually reinforced what you're saying about we need to, if we're neutralizing a threat, if we're simply trying to preserve our own lives, we're not going to be aiming, we're just going to be shooting. And I instruct our students when they take the shooting test for concealed carry, I instruct them to spread out their shots. I discourage tight groups. I don't want tight groups because it makes it harder for me to count the holes on the target. And so I always emphasize to the students that marksmanship is overrated, just like David does. And but it's funny because, as you say, the people who are more experienced shooters, it's really hard for them to not make tight groups. It's hard for them to go against that training.
Oh, it can be. It can be very hard behaviorally for them to break that pattern. You're talking about someone's value. You're talking about someone's self-worth. If they are a shooter and they are a marksman, you're now undermining, a decade or what their grandfather told them, what the drill sergeant told them, what they believe got them through, their worst case scenario event they may have had in the past, and you're sort of blowing that all away. And then there's the range habits, right? So I do jokingly say to people, I say, if you're really that good that you can shoot all your shots into one group, then humor me and spread them out. But the problem is the guy who's taking his time to put a shot up high left and a shot high right and a shot low left and a shot in the middle inside of that box is still doing the same thing. And what we really need to do is there's a subjectivity to it. You watch thousands of people on the range in lots of different environments on a few different continents and different skill levels, different contexts, different guns, different skill, different physical skills, strength, dexterity, coordination, intellect, vision. And you watch enough people shoot, and you can stand there and say, I feel like I can stand there with a fair amount of integrity and legitimacy and say, look, you can do that a lot faster. And if you start picking out, kind of gaming it, you're fulfilling the same mental need to put the bullet exactly where you want in that pie plate, as opposed to just getting over that illusion of control. And I'll get to why I say it's an illusion, and actually just loading up the pie plate and accepting that anything in that pie plate is equal, because the lungs may be inflated on your bad guy, or he may have just exhaled, or the heart may be contracting, or the heart may be expanding, or he may have just shifted to the left a little bit and his spine's over here now, or he's twisted and his spine's over there now, and you don't know what's going on behind that jacket or the hoodie. So let's just put rounds into that general area.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I say it's an illusion is because we know that there's this huge disparity between now a lot of states have gone to pass-fail, and a lot of concealed carry permit qualification lists are pass-fail. And if it's done right, the pass-fail type tests engender a better performance, a more realistic and practical performance from that police academy or concealed carry permit student. But in the olden days, when we used to have the scores and they'd write them down, and it'd be 80% to pass or 70% to pass, whatever it was, and you'd see these department averages of 85% or 90% or even in the low 90s on qualification courses, and yet the performance on the street was in the high teens or the lower 20%, and it was just hits. Forget about vital area hits or X-ring hits or 9-ring hits, just 20% of the shots hitting the bad guy.
But when you
see this huge drop.
When you present that to your board of directors or your whatever, they love it. It's a number that they can wrap their head around.
Sure.
And I think that's why it's been perpetuated all this time, because it's something they understand it, and they don't really care if it's effective.
No, and it's both sides of the coin. You've got the fact that the shooters, the enthusiasts, are driving the train, because obviously the guy who's going to end up being the head firearms instructor or the program director at the agency or at the academy, he's going to be a shooter. He's going to be passionate about firearms. We got
to take a break here. We're going to be back with Rod. When we come back, we're going to talk about how you can train for a dynamic critical incident. I think it's a really important thing to go over. We'll be back with more on Target Radio, and you're listening to AM560, The Answer.
We're so excited about our sold-out golf outing at the Bolingbrook Golf.
George, he can hear the music, right? You might tell him when the music's on. Okay. I come back with an ad, right?
You are selling shrinks. Sell it.
Selling-
Sell it.
Sell it.
Sell it.
I got a cigar. Let me get a cigar here. I want to light a cigar. All right, I'm right center here. Can you imagine Reisman coming in the morning and smelling cigar smoke in here?
Oh my God. You'd have a cow.
He would. He'd probably have heart failure. That and an empty casing. Laying
Yeah,
out.
you would have
Funny
a
thing is, you know, the first person he's going to suspect is not you.
Who will he suspect? He'll think Pincus was back.
No. I'm one of the only smokers who works here.
Oh. But you're a cigarette smoker.
I'm an everything smoker.
Oh, well, there you go.
Smoker.
That makes it
Period.
simple. Yeah.
Ambiguous by design.
This is the long.
Oh, this is so funny. Guy jumps into a cactus and then immediately regrets it.
Oh, God, I saw.
Oh,
Did
it
you watch
makes
it
my
all the way
stomach
through?
hurt.
Oh, my God.
Why did he jump into it?
Because he's an idiot.
It's a dare.
Oh, thank you.
He's prepared. He's got his face covered, but his chest is bare.
Well, did you see his body?
Yeah.
He's riddled
Just,
with.
just looking
Yeah.
at it.
Oh, I know. It's making my stomach hurt.
And you know those things are barred.
Yeah.
They go in easy. They don't come out easy.
Right, I know. And they're just ripping him out.
Oh, I know. He's got blood
His
gushing out of
friends-
one.
Yeah, his friends are just ripping him out.
Of course, his friends think it's hysterical.
Oh, I just saw the close-up of them ripping one out. Oh.
Did you see the one where he's gushing blood?
Oh. It made my stomach hurt.
Yeah.
What is this you're watching?
A guy jumped into a cactus on purpose.
He intentionally jumped into a cactus.
And he's
A
got
big, but not one little
No.
cholla. We're talking a big stand of
Do you want me to
cactus
share it to your
with a bathing
Facebook
suit on.
page?
No, I've probably done stupider. I don't need to watch it. I just always laugh. Anytime somebody jumps into foliage of any sort, I think of drunk Kiefer Sutherland jumping into a Christmas tree at a mall in Canada.
Kiefer Sutherland. Did you see Castle?
No.
Oh ho ho ho!
Which one?
Guess what?
What season are you watching?
Guess who's off the show?
No.
You bet. She is.
Really? No.
And the black woman both. I forget her name. They're both off.
Now see, you ruined it for me.
Budget.
Really?
They may not even have the season.
Oh my gosh. That's a shocker.
What kind of show are you going to have without the tension between
Without
those two
the
characters?
star, yeah,
Right.
no.
Apparently it's money.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And frankly, of the two, she was the coolest. Because she had those little barbs that she would throw out, you know?
Yeah.
He was like a puppy following her around.
Because I'm lazy, Jim.
The Aurora Sportsman's Club. Well, considering,
Well, it's a lot better than that place, Less Safe USA.
including, considering that this post went up a short time ago and has 1,180 people reached, where are the phone calls?
Nobody wants to interrupt Rob. He's doing good.
I don't know.
I should have brought gloves. I'm so cold.
It is chilly.
My hands
Quentin
are cold.
Forrester commented. The hell is Quentin Forrester?
1 minute.
He used to comment like all the time.
What you and your guest are talking about is something that is no longer taught, instinctive shooting. That is what it is. He doesn't say if that's good or bad.
concealed carry, and 2 on-staff gunsmiths for your repair and customization needs. 847-298-4867 or visit MaxonShooters.com. That's Maxim, M-A-X-O-N Shooters.com. Maxon Shooters supplies an indoor range, Chicagoland's finest gun shop and indoor range. 847-298-4867.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM560 The Answer with David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz. Here's David and Gretchen with more interesting conversation on gun control, concealed carry, freedom of speech, and other red meat issues that affect your life.
Over half a century ago, a respected firearms store opened. It started as a hobby for Mike Schrank and has now served generations of customers. Schrank's Smoke and Gun retains a family atmosphere and now carries the largest selection of new, used, and consignment firearms in Lake County. From pistols, rifles, and shotguns to hard-to-find calibers, collectibles, and older functioning hunting rifles. You'll also find full gunsmith services from simple detail cleaning to complete rebuilds. Whether you're thinking about your first firearm and a FOID card or looking to add to your collection, visit Schrank's Smoke and Gun. If you have a firearm to sell, their recent sale was so successful, they need your firearms. And if you love cigars, you'll find your favorites in Schrank's humidors, along with a broad selection of pipes and tobacco. Visit smoke.gun.org or call 847-662-4034. Schrank's Smoke and Gun in Waukegan, your family-owned gun store since 1964. That's 847-662-4034. Give us a call at 312-642-5600. It's your chance to talk to Rob Pincus. I know there's a bunch of people on there on Facebook chattering about it. Give us a call, 312-642-5600. Rob, what can people do to train? What sorts of things are available? What kind of stuff do you recommend to train for dynamic critical incident?
Well, obviously, there's the firearms classes that we offer through I.C.E. training. We have scores of instructors who are certified to teach the combat-focused shooting program around the country. We have our defensive firearms coaches who teach the more fundamental level for people interested in home defense or concealed carry. But, aside from all that, we've got courses that are really aimed at people who aren't that interested in firearms yet, who maybe are still considering firearms for home defense. We launched a new program last year called the Family Firearms Safety Seminars, which our defensive firearms coaches teach, that introduces families to how to responsibly have a firearm in their home along with kids, because a lot of people have apprehension about that. We have our school attacker response course and our active shooter programs that deal with 99% unarmed responses. When I say unarmed, I mean without a firearm, responses to violence in the public space. Whether it's a school or a hospital or amusement park, a movie theater, places like that. So there's a lot of resources that we have under I.C.E. Training Company or Personal Defense Network, scores of videos and articles available there online for free as well from a few dozen instructors in a variety of areas. The resources that we have available today are really amazing when you look back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when there were, maybe 6 or 7 legitimate firearms defense schools that were operating in one space, and another couple dozen instructors who would travel around and go to ranges. 25 years ago, we had only a handful of states that were quote-unquote shall issue in terms of concealed carry, and one, possibly I guess Vermont and Alaska were considered constitutional carry back at the time, where if you could legally own a gun, you could legally carry it. When you look around the landscape of training opportunities today, and the hundreds of instructors who are putting out quality programs. If we just look at Illinois and the growth over the last few years since the federal court mandated a change in the concealed carry permit laws there in your home state, the landscape has changed so dramatically. I mean, I've taught more in Illinois in the last 3 years than I have in the 15 that I've been doing this full time, all put together. Prior to a few years ago, almost all my classes in Illinois were for law enforcement.
We definitely want to get you to come out to the Aurora Sportsman's Club. We'll have to check calendars and take a look at that, because we'd love to have you teach one out there.
Yeah, I heard that commercial actually during the break, and I remembered we talked about that place, and it sounds awesome. And a few people already commented on my Facebook when they saw I was doing all the classes last week at 4 different ranges in Illinois. A couple of people asked, do you know about Aurora? Are you coming to Aurora? And I said, in fact, stand by, because hopefully I'll get back there this fall.
Yeah, we definitely would like to do that. when we come back, we're going to have to take a break again because the segments get shorter toward the end. But when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about just leave our listeners with maybe a couple of drills that they could do. I think that the comment that you have in your literature is you may not walk out of this class a better shooter, but you're going to know what your weak points are, and we're going to give you stuff that you can do to work on it. And I think that's a really big thing.
I agree. I think knowing how to diagnose your deficiencies, having the mindset to look for them, and instead of celebrating your successes, look for your weaknesses, look for your deficiencies, and then figure out how to get better. I think that's one of the most important things an instructor can do in the kinds of classes that so many of us attend and now teach in the personal defense world, because they're short classes. They're 1 day, they're 2 days, they're 3 days. You're not going to own a physical skill set over that short of a time period. We need repetition over time, and that repetition, if it's going to improve your performance, has to be diagnosed and has to be done with some form of methodology that encourages not only the identification of those problems, but the improvement in specific areas that are going to make you maybe not a better marksman, but a more efficient defensive firearms user.
And I've said this in my rant, and I'll say it again. You have a great sense of humor, and some people I think maybe take it the wrong way, but we had one or two. But basically, you pick on everybody, and everybody's laughing, and it's a long 2 days. You know that as well as I do. And it'd be hard to go that long under pressure the whole time. So when we come back, we're going to talk about what, a couple of drills people might do to help themselves out. And we're going to talk about that and a little bit more on Target Radio. And we'll be back after these messages. And you're listening to AM560, The Answer.
How can you get from here to there? We've got the answer from the North States.
I got a dialogue going with somebody here. That's nice. Raphael? Oh, I know him. Raphael.
Do you?
Yeah. Hey, Obama, what about the civil rights of women who don't want men in their bathroom?
I posted that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
It's got...
Just now.
Oh, it's on Target Radio.
Yeah.
It is cold.
Chilly. It's a little chilly, isn't it? In fact, I think I got 2 minutes. I think I'm going to swap this with top 2. I can do it quick. Cold water's just making me colder.
Okay.
Warmer in that hallway.
Yeah, it definitely is. You're right. It definitely is warmer in that pot. Drills you can do. You like his courses. He picks on everybody, but it's funny. He had one guy, we were doing figure 8 drills, anyway. And
30 seconds.
The guy kind of kept screwing up. And Pincus finally goes, "You don't know what you're doing. Go and stand in that puddle." So the guy goes and stands in the puddle.
Nice.
It's great.
Where's Gretchen? Hello. She got 5 seconds.
7955 630 777 7955.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM560 The Answer with David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz. Here's David and Gretchen with more interesting conversation on gun control, concealed carry, freedom of speech, and other red meat issues that affect your life.
And we're back with more On Target Radio. Our guest this evening is Rob Pincus, who is the owner of I.C.E. Training, and we've been talking about his combat-focused shooting program. Rob, if the last two segments here are pretty short, just only a few minutes. If you could just maybe one or two drills that people might work with.
Yeah, the first thing that we want to do is make sure that people are using the right fundamental approach to their shooting. So what I would suggest, I actually just made a couple comments during the break at the On Target Radio Facebook. I do a lot of time, I spend a lot of time on social media, so people can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. It's at Pincus Rob, or obviously Rob Pincus at the Facebook, just my name. A couple pages, they can find me on either one, and ask any follow-up questions they have. The best place to see the drills, to see the shooting stance, the natural neutral shooting stance we talk about, the intuitive extended shooting position that we talk about, the best place to go for that is personaldefensenetwork.com. You can go in any search engine, put my name or combat focused shooting in with stance or sighted fire, unsighted fire, firearm selection, whatever topic you want. Been putting out a lot of content for 20 years now. I think people will probably be able to find what they're looking for online. Once they see what we're talking about with the natural stance and the intuitive approach to firearms, the kinesthetic alignment that you mentioned, once they see all that, then the drills start. But like I always say, if you're trying to run the drills that we teach, but you're using a mechanical shooting approach from 1985, they're not going to be that powerful for you. It's just not going to change much because you're starting so far kind of out of the spectrum of what we teach and what I think is best, that you're going to go through the motions, and it's probably not going to change much. But once you get into an intuitive shooting style.
We started teaching it. I started teaching it this weekend, the way you did.
That's awesome. That's great. And like I said, in the class, because we had a couple thunderstorms we had to hide from, we peeled the onion a little bit deeper. The average end-user class is going to go 2 or 3 levels deep. The average radio interview scratches the surface. The videos and books and stuff that we put out go a little deeper. But, the next thing is the instructor development class. Let's go 5 or 6 or 7 levels deeper and really understand even more, because there's so much to this. I've stopped looking at firearms courses, a decade ago. I look at neuroscience research. I look at human behavior research. I look at non-cognitive decision-making research to look for ways to help people develop recognition patterns and learned responses to learned stimuli, or converting our natural reactions, our instinctive reactions to natural stimuli into learned, more efficient responses. That's where the research is being done. That's where the cutting edge is, not to mention adult learning and all the other things we know about. So when it comes to a drill, once people have some physical basis that looks like what we teach and feels more intuitive and natural, then the trick is to really do something like a balance of speed and precision drill. And a balance of speed and precision drill is quickly defined as any drill that has at least 2 different commands and requires at least 2 different levels of precision. Because while we consider accuracy a yes or no thing, we still obviously have different levels of precision. A target further away, you're going to have to apply more skill. A target that's smaller, you're going to have to apply more skill. So you can have the head size, head shape size targets, and you can have the chest size targets, which are larger, stand 12, 15 feet away. For most people, that's going to mean unsighted, kinesthetically aligned shooting at the chest. And for most people, that's going to mean sighted fire at the smaller circles or triangles you're using to represent the center of the head. And have a training partner call out, different commands in a randomized way that require you to engage those 2 targets on command a little bit differently, one or go the other. Because what's going to happen is, in the real fight, because it's that dynamic critical incident, right where we started, it's surprising. Everybody gets that. You were caught off guard. But what people don't usually get is the chaos. You're going to need to be processing information, collecting and processing information in the midst of this event. So to ignore that fact and get a stage briefing, have somebody reading off a clipboard and say, you are going to have to fire 3 rounds to the chest. Do you understand the course of fire? Are you ready? Okay. Stand by, wait for the buzzer. That doesn't happen when you're standing in the pizza shop and some guy shoots the clerk and turns the gun towards all the customers, and now you have to defend yourself. And you have to process the information, headshot or multiple chest shots. What do I need to do, and can I do it now? And that's how your drills should look.
That's like when we're doing the figure 8 drill, and how many targets are up? 6 targets, I think, with 4 different places on each target, numbers and symbols and colors and all that, and people are walking in a figure eight, and then you just call something out, and you have to immediately orient yourself and engage. That's tough. It's tough to do.
It is. It's very tough. Yeah, and that's an evaluative drill. That is a drill that we use about 75 to 85% of the way through the course. And when we get done with that, you've watched, you've gone through it and had your experience. You've watched all the other students go through it, and then immediately we go right back into our development cycle of drilling and practicing, so that you can capitalize on the lessons learned in that simulation. And it's a simulation of a 360-degree event where obviously you're at gun school, you're on a range, you're going to have to shoot, but you don't know what the command's going to be. And as you know, we can be pretty creative with what the commands are to force you to think and figure out which of those targets in front of you is the one you need to shoot. And we create some pressure. I'm not afraid to push people out of their comfort zone, as you've mentioned, hopefully with a sense of humor. And I get it. Now, when you're standing in the figure eight, it's not always funny to you, but hopefully you see the humor in it, and it breaks the tension a little bit for everybody who's watching, getting nervous about their turn, because I'm sure it seems funnier and easier when you're standing in the line waiting than it does when you're actually in the figure eight.
I'm very proud of two things. One of the things that I'm proudest of is you didn't make me go stand in the puddle after the figure eight.
Well, that was only one guy, and that's because his feet wouldn't move. I thought, maybe if we let him be aware that he has feet, he'd probably move a little bit more realistically.
We're going to be back with more on target. We're going to wrap this all up. When we come back, we'll do Gretchen's actions items, and then we'll ask Rob to tell you how you can get a hold of him. So all that and more when we come back with On Target Radio. And you're listening to AM560, The Answer.
If you're looking for a better shooting experience, imagine shooting virtually all your...
Can you tell that Chloe installed a Disney Plus GIF thing on my Messenger app?
Yeah.
What did she do?
Chloe's just installing random shit on my phone.
He's
How did you know that?
He's sending me stuff and
I was making fun of her for dancing around.
Facebook Instant Messenger. There's
for the camera. And the Facebook Messenger, there's like these bouncing Disney things.
Yeah, there's like these plush toys that are like jumping on a big plush toy.
And those are the only ones I have loaded into my phone, because those are the ones that Chloe decided to install as I was attempting.
So she's making fun of you.
Avoid it completely.
Chloe? No, he is.
No.
But
Chloe will eventually.
I was saying, it's actually helping, and he commented, and I said, Dave likes watching me shake my ass too.
You're sort of on the wrong side of the table for that.
I know. But there's such a thing as called reflection.
But in class...
When I reflect upon it...
That's right.
A point of strategy.
In class, I show my sticky holster, and then I show that it doesn't move. So he likes it when I do that.
You want me to do that?
Although it would help my diet, I won't eat your weight.
What has been seen cannot be unseen.
What's your last message?
I have a point of strategy since Rob tends to go on. Let's come right back. We'll do your thing first.
Yeah.
How long have you got?
777-4193. Let the hunters become the hunted. Let John DeWatt of Thinking Outside the Box Law Firm deal with the IRS personally. Call John for your own relief plan. 888-777-4193 or online at thinkingoutsidetheboxlaw.com. That's thinkingoutsidetheboxlaw.com.
You're listening to On Target Radio on AM560 The Answer with David Lombardo and Gretchen Fritz. Here's David and Gretchen with more interesting conversation on gun control, concealed carry, freedom of speech, and other red meat issues that affect your life.
And we're back with more On Target Radio. Gretchen's going to do her stuff for the week, and then we're going to talk to Rob again, and we're going to find out how you can get a hold of him if you want to do that.
Stand by. Here's Gretchen with your action items for the week.
From the Illinois State Rifle Association, HB 1016, the Gun Dealer Licensing Act, is a bad bill that is being considered by the Illinois House right now. HB 1016 is rotten to the core and is a perfect example of government at its worst. We could go on and on with what's wrong with HB 1016, but we will not. As you probably know, firearm dealers are already required to hold a federal firearms license, or FFL. FFLs are held to a high standard of business practices, record keeping, and inspections by federal agents. The heart of HB 1016 is the requirement that all firearm dealers must also have a state-issued license in order to operate, which comes with a whole list of additional onerous rights-infringing requirements. If HB 1016 does get signed into law, the immediate effect will be the closing of most gun shops in the state. The costs of complying with HB 1016 will add at least $100 to $200 to the price of any gun you buy at the shops that remain open. Ammunition will skyrocket in price as well. Please call your state representative and let him or her know that you want them to oppose HB 1016. You are also encouraged to call Representative Kathleen Willis's offices and politely tell the person who answers the phone that you are a law-abiding gun owner and you do not appreciate Representative Willis's attack on your Second Amendment rights. I put this on Facebook earlier today with a link to help you find your representative. The following Safer USA classes are at our facility in Waterman. Sunday, May 22nd, long-range rifle, taught by Ed Janka. Saturday, May 28th, tactical pistol 1 and 2, taught by David. Saturday and Sunday, June 4th and 5th, and June 11th and 12th, Illinois Concealed Carry 1. The 16-hour class will be taught by David and Gretchen and meets the training requirements for Illinois Concealed Carry, as well as Florida, Arizona, and Utah. To sign up for classes, go to saferusa.com and click on register.
James, are we doing segment 6 tonight?
We are. We're going to keep talking about the reality of concealed carry in segment 6.
That's what we're going to do. And Mr. Pincus, you got 30 seconds to give us the pithy information on how we can get you.
I think I already kind of did that, I guess, earlier. We talked about Facebook, social media. ICEtraining.us is the best place to see the calendar. Look for that course coming up in Aurora. I'm sure I'll be back in Illinois next year on the Personal Defense Network Training Tour 2017. I'm going to be in Wisconsin at the end of the month after speaking at the NRA convention in Louisville coming up this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So and I'm in Michigan this week for a couple classes, and right before Memorial Day weekend before I head up to Wisconsin. So
I got a question.
You guys having me on the show.
I got a question. I looked at your calendar. One day you're like in Iowa, and the next day you're in Vegas, and the next day you're in New York City. How the heck you're driving a vehicle? How do you do that?
Well, the good news is during the tour, I actually spend most of my time pretty linearly going from Florida up to New Hampshire and then out to the Pacific Northwest, across through the Midwest and the plains and then over the mountains. For most of the last 5 years, I've been pretty linear. The NRA show is an important event that I backtrack for a little bit when it's late in the year like it is this year, and I'm going to go back to Louisville for that. But remember, we have a team of instructors. So when you look at that calendar, for example, we've got 2 guys that are top-notch instructors that have taught all over the world, teaching a course for our company in Nevada this weekend. We've got a couple other affiliated instructors that are busy in Florida. One guy was busy in New Hampshire. One guy was teaching in Pennsylvania. So we've got a whole team of instructors. So if you look at the fine print, it's not always me. But it's always a world-class team of instructors at I.C.E. Training or any of the combat-focused shooting instructors.
I thought,
but I'll do about 50 classes this year.
I just thought perhaps you drove like Gretchen does. That's all. All right, Rob, thank you very much.
I want Gretchen on the range with it.
There you go.
Gretchen on the range with
You'll get her. Thanks very much for being with us tonight, and we'd like to thank everybody for listening. It's been another great show, and we'll be back next week doing something, and we have no idea what. And as always, thank you, Michael, for making it all happen.